Hello everyone, welcome back to the Strike Point Media channel. Please subscribe and like my videos because today we are diving into one of the most dramatic breaking news stories of our time. A story that has shaken the foundations of power, altered the balance of global conflict, and left the world watching in awe and disbelief as Ukrainian drones turned Moscow into a firestorm. And as the night sky lit up with waves of relentless strikes, the image of a city once considered untouchable was transformed into a battlefield, proving that in modern warfare the most powerful symbols can fall not with nuclear blasts or massive invasions, but with swarms of small, intelligent, and persistent machines designed to strike with precision and persistence. And as the explosions echoed across the skyline, the entire world held its breath, realizing that this was not just another attack, but a message written in fire across the heart of Russia's capital, a message that the age of drones had truly arrived and that the rules of war had changed forever, because the exterior of Moscow became the canvas on which this new era was painted. As fireballs roared into the sky, glass towers shimmered with reflected flames, and smoke plumes stretched so high they swallowed the stars, turning night into a living inferno, and the once meticulously controlled streets of the city descended into chaos as emergency sirens screamed endlessly, their wails competing with the roar of collapsing structures and the boom of detonations. While cars were abandoned mid-road, traffic lights blinked over empty intersections, and the vast highways of the capital that once symbolized modernity became eerie corridors littered with debris, shattered concrete, and twisted steel, and every corner of the city carried the scars of precision strikes as oil depots ignited like volcanoes spewing fire, as industrial zones collapsed into heaps of smoking rubble, and as residential districts watched in horror when nearby impacts shattered windows and sent shockwaves rattling through apartments. And it was here in this raw devastation that the illusion of Moscow's invulnerability was destroyed, because for decades the Kremlin projected the idea that its heart was impenetrable, defended by layers of sophisticated technology and unyielding vigilance. Yet in one night of relentless drone waves, that illusion melted away, and the imagery told the truth more vividly than any words could, as entire districts were cast in an orange glow. Flames reflected in the Moscow River like rivers of blood, and the city's skyline, once the proud backdrop of parades and speeches, now resembled a war zone that no amount of propaganda could conceal. And within these towering infernos lived the interior story, the human cost, the emotional shattering of millions who suddenly found themselves thrust into the center of a war they had been told was far away, as families huddled in underground metro stations repurposed as shelters, their ears ringing from distant blasts, their hands clutched tightly around children who asked questions no parent could answer, as elderly citizens whispered memories of the Second World War with disbelief that their grandchildren were now enduring something so hauntingly familiar, as lights flickered off in neighborhoods hit by strikes on power stations, leaving apartments in darkness where people sat in silence lit only by phones and candles, listening for the next impact, waiting for the tremors in the ground that seemed endless, and the fear was so palpable that it spread faster than the flames themselves, because when people posted live videos of shattered windows, collapsed ceilings, and burning rooftops, the entire world could see that the war had breached the very heart of Russia, and no official denial or carefully crafted narrative could erase the reality of screams echoing through stairwells, of children pressing their ears shut against the thunder, and of citizens running through streets covered in ash, trying to find safety where none seemed possible. And in this moment, the performance of Ukraine's drones became impossible to ignore, because these were not just makeshift machines flying blind into targets. They were coordinated, persistent, intelligent systems designed to overwhelm Moscow's defenses in waves, probing for weaknesses, striking infrastructure that crippled energy supplies, ignited chaos, and left the capital struggling to mount a coherent response. And the sheer endurance of these drones told its own story. because no matter how many were shot down by air defenses, others slipped through, navigating past radar, confusing jamming systems, and proving that the cost of offense had become so much smaller than the cost of defense, as millions of dollars of missiles were wasted to intercept drones worth only a fraction, and yet still the drones made it through, and the balance of warfare tilted visibly before our eyes, because performance was measured not only in destruction but in persistence, in the ability to launch wave after wave that outlasted the patience, resources, and technology of the defenders. And in this arena, Ukraine proved it had reshaped the battlefield, forcing Russia to defend its very core rather than expand outward. And safety became the cruel irony of this new war, because for Russian leadership that had promised citizens security, there was suddenly no safety to offer, not in the gleaming apartments of Moscow, not in the industrial heartlands, not even in the government districts where alarms blared and guards scrambled, because drones do not respect walls, checkpoints, or armored gates. They arrive silently from the sky, they slip past barriers, they strike with precision in places once thought untouchable, and the safety features designed to shield the capital seemed outdated overnight, as jammers failed to block the signals, as anti-aircraft systems fired late or too inaccurately, and as the population realized that the very defenses they had been told were impregnable were in fact porous and vulnerable, and this realization did more damage to trust than any explosion could, because when a government cannot protect its people in the heart of its capital, the narrative collapses, leaving behind fear, doubt, and anger that spreads like fire through the consciousness of the nation. And as we reflect on this unfolding moment, we see the unique selling points of this new era of weaponry with clarity, because drones bring affordability, scalability, precision, and persistence to the battlefield, turning them into equalizers against larger, wealthier adversaries, and in the skies over Moscow this was demonstrated with terrifying clarity, because for every multi-million-dollar defense system engaged, there came another swarm of drones, worth a fraction of that price but delivering an impact far greater than their size suggested. And this asymmetry is what makes them revolutionary, because they turn war into a battle of endurance rather than wealth, a test of resilience rather than stockpiles. And for Ukraine, this has become the sharpest weapon in its arsenal, one that sends messages not only through explosions, but through the symbolism of striking the very nerve center of Russia. And the cost of these drones compared to the damage inflicted is staggering, because for every small amount spent to build and deploy them, cost to the adversary multiplies in infrastructure destroyed, in lives disrupted, in political stability shaken, and in global perception altered. And as the flames continued to rise above Moscow, this equation played out before the entire world, showing that price is not measured in dollars alone, but in psychological impact, in broken illusions, and in the message that no city is safe when technology makes the sky itself a battlefield. And the conclusion drawn from this fiery night is clear, that the war has entered a new chapter, one where drones will decide the pace, the scale, and the reach of destruction, one where the mightiest capitals can burn from within, one where safety is no longer guaranteed by distance or defense, but by adaptation and innovation. And as the city of Moscow smoldered under the weight of relentless strikes, as the world watched the firestorm through trembling camera lenses, the final truth emerged with blinding clarity, that history had turned a page, that warfare would never again be the same, and that the image of Moscow burning under the wings of Ukrainian drones would forever stand as the symbol of a world where power is no longer defined only by size and wealth, but by adaptability, creativity, and the relentless pursuit of new ways to fight. And this is why the events of this night matter not only to Russia and Ukraine, but to every nation watching, because the lesson is universal, the warning is unmistakable, and the firestorm over Moscow is not just a story of war, but a glimpse into the future that is already here, unfolding in flames and smoke across the skies of the 21st century.